Hey there. I'm Christopher McClure from wholenessgeeks.com, and welcome to Meditation Happy Hour, which happens midday on on Facebook, Wholeness Geeks page, and that's Mountain Time. Excuse me. And it's a time when I share meditations, processes, perspectives, both ancient and modern. And today I'd like to talk to you about worthlessness. Um, this is up for me because I've recently done I'm actually in the process of creating a book and about the name of the book is Character Autolysis, and it's a process where you can look at the aspects of your life and find the inner selves, the inner self for each aspect of that life, and then to do a process where you 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 recognize the desire of each one of those selves and the tactic that it uses to achieve its desire and the obstacle that typically comes up. And then by looking at the polarity between the tactic and the obstacle, find the resolution of that. And that becomes like the character, the that becomes the plot point of this of this character. And then you look at the wound of the character. And as I was doing, going through this process and as I'm writing the book, I realized that each one of these characters really at the core wound is worthlessness. And so uh, I'm kind of assuming that that's true for all humanity. And I'm actually seeing that. I'm just seeing as I'm, you know, going through this process myself, I'm seeing people, uh, friends and family, that how their worthlessness is coming up and kind of showing through the cracks um, in our our individual functional humanness. Um, so anyway, I want to talk first. I want to talk about why that worthlessness is there, and the way I see it, it actually I'll refer to the to A Course in Miracles, seminal book that was written in the last in like in I think around the 1950s. Um, but this book points out that that we are, in essence, we are one. That's the truth. The underlying truth of creation is that we're all made from the same energy, right? So there's this inherent oneness, but we've slid. If you look at if you look at life, um, you have on it's like an equation, and on one side you have creation, and on the other side you have the absolute or oneness. And but we've, in terms of human beings, we've slid over to the creation side where we only see the separateness, right? The separateness of form, and we don't see the formlessness or the oneness very much. So in that sense, we're operating under an illusion, right? It's an illusion because we're only seeing one side of the equation, uh, and yet, so that there's like a cognitive dissonance going on here because that's what we're perceiving, that's what our conscious minds are seeing, but underneath we are essential being, our unconscious, knows that we are all one. And because we know that, the very foundation of our consciousness, of our conscious mind, knows that we in in reference to that oneness, we are worthless. To just think that we're, just this human being trapped inside this body, there's like this inherent sense of worthlessness because we're not consciously embodying that oneness that lies beneath the worthlessness that's more essential, more seminal. So that's point number one. Point number two is that the mechanism that keeps us locked in this denial, right? It's a denial that we actually feel worthless. It cracks through. It peeps through the cracks, but um, essentially we're trying not to feel that worthlessness, and that the mechanism that keeps us sort of trapped, that keeps the worthlessness locked down, not only from other people, so we can pretend that we're, oh yeah, I'm good, how are you? Oh, I'm good, yeah, I'm great, if I was any better, I'd be too, or whatever you want to, the thing that keeps keeps that worthlessness locked down is shame. And it not only keeps it's like a protective mechanism. It protects us from, from the ridicule of other people that were, worthless. It also protects ourselves from that worthlessness, so we don't have to feel that, because worthlessness is such a debilitating feeling. um, but really, when you think about it, it's the shame that has such a debilitating effect on our wholeness, on who we really are, because keeps keeps the denial going. It keeps the illusion that we're only, we're just these human beings locked in these bodies with limited intelligence. We only use 10% or whatever of our full, capacity. So the way to get beneath the shame is is simple but difficult, and it's one word: vulnerability. So when you when you see the shame, or you immediately have to make a choice, and the choice is, I'm not going to be limited by that shame. I'm going to actually share what I'm feeling underneath. I'm going to be vulnerable and share that. And I, this way of choosing, this deciding, I experienced this at the end of 2023. I got sick. I had COVID, um, and this complication. I got pneumonia, and then the pneumonia created this fluid in my lungs, in my lung cavity. It's called pleural effusion, and part of me just like didn't want to admit that I was sick, let anybody know that I was sick. And as soon as I saw that, I had to go into the hospital. I spent 11 days in the hospital, and I I saw that and went into the hospital. There was like the there was a decision to like keep it quiet or to just be honest and share it, and that's what I chose to do. And as a result, I had many people come and visit me in the hospital, and it was like I was holding court, and we had deep discussions, and so um, it's a choice you have to make to not let the shame. It's like an oppression, not let the shame oppress you, not let society oppress you, not let your own, your own persona oppress you. So the worthlessness, that's point number 3. Point number 4 is that the worthlessness is actually it's a good sign. It's a good thing because it shows you that when you can actually feel the worthlessness, you're actually at the bottom of the illusion. You're like right at the brink of breaking through into what's actually true. So it's like I said, it's a good sign. Worthlessness is a good sign. It means you're close to God. You're close to your whole self. You're close to your to your wholeness. Now, the thing is that the reason people don't want to even feel remotely even stick their toe in the water of worthlessness is because it's easy to get stuck in it. It's like once you get to that level, it's hard to go up, and we don't know how to go down. We don't know how to get through it. Well, one way that you can get through it is a practice that I call what the who. And what this and this practice is, you can find it in spiritual traditions. Nazagar Datta talks. This was his like main spiritual technique that he learned from his teacher and practiced it for 4 years and broke through and became enlightened. The practice is essentially, we're so used to being the subject and viewing our experience of the world, viewing our life as all these objects. We're the subject, and then there's all. So we're used to this, and even in meditation, we do the same thing. We focus on a candle flame. We focus on breathing. We focus on a mantra. We it's subject object. Well, in this technique and what the who, you take your attention, and instead of focusing, it out on something, or even focusing, on your breathing or your feelings or sensation, or parts of the body, or even the shapes in the inner shapes or the visualizations, you turn your attention around and you focus it on who's looking, right? And when you look at who's looking, we think, because we're never looking at who's looking, we think that who's looking is a solid thing. But when we actually turn our attention around and look at who's looking, we realize that who is looking is not a solid thing. Who is looking is a bunch of thoughts and feelings, and when you continue to look at it, it gets really kind of big and vast. It's almost like it's a back door to who you thought you were, and it goes out into the universe. You realize that you're really not a who, but you're a what, and hence the name What the Who. So that's a way to go. That's a way to go down through the worthlessness. Once you realize that you're, that you're the universe. You essentially we're realizing that oneness. We're actually getting in touch with that oneness. We've broken through the worthlessness into the oneness. We can come back up and back out into the world, but there's a new sense of transparency. It's like, okay, so here I am again, doing the things I do, feeling the things I feel, thinking the things I think. Excuse me, coughing the way I cough. um, there's a new sense of transparency and humility. It's like, well, I'm not just this, solid individual. It's like I'm just really part of the universe, just doing what I do. But there's a practice that can can lead us into the potentiality of who we are, of who every human being is. And this practice is called valuing. Comes from John C. Maxwell, who is a leader of leadership. And this is a seminal practice of his, and it's very simple, or fairly simple, and yet, to practice it devotedly, with every person you meet, takes a lot of initiative and follow through. And the practice is simply that when you meet somebody, you kind of like ask yourself, well, what's a quality about them that's valuable? What's a value that they have? And when you see that value, then you think about, well, how can I add value to that value? So, for instance, if you have a friend and say he he it's like when he goes for a walk, if he sees stuff lying on the ground, like litter, he'll pick it up and you know take it to a garbage can. So if you see that value, first thing, the way you can add value to that value is just by saying, hey, that's really cool that you do that. It's like not everybody does that, and it's like you're making the world a better place for everybody by doing that. And um, then you can look for ways of adding to that value. I mean, one way you can add value to that is by telling other people about it, and um, and saying, look, if everybody like picked up stuff and threw it in the trash can, then we'd have a much more beautiful, cleaner environment. You know, and you can act on ways on ways to add value to that value by actually joining in. It's like, here, let me help you with that. You're going for a walk with this particular person, and you're both picking up stuff, and and not only you can also encourage other people, not only to do what that person is doing, but to encourage that person. So those are that's essentially valuing, and you can do that with really any value. You just you notice a value, add value. And what we're doing there is if everybody is valuing each other, we're 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 developing the human race to its highest potential. And the highest potential of the human race is that of, of each human, is that we are divine. The word human is two syllables. It's Hu and man. Hu is Egyptian, and it means divine. So it's inherent in our the name of our species of that we are divine, and it's because we have that ability to go back and to experience the whole universe as ourselves that makes us divine. We still we can still be in a body and experience the whole universe, and that not every species can do that. We have that ability. We have the ability to choose between that individuality and the universality, and we have the ability to be both, and that is where the evolution of the human species is going. It's the that ability is already here. It's just that um, we've denied that ability. But when we value each other, we actually start moving towards that divine humanship. And we've had what are called avatars. Avatar is a Hindu word which means it's an advanced being who comes to Earth to show other humans their potential, like Jesus or Buddha were both avatars. Well, the the coming avatar is actually not a single person. It's actually a collective avatar. It's called Kalki, K A Kalki, and we are the next avatar. We can only do this together. We, as fellow humans of the human race, have to realize our divine humanship, and in doing so, we become the the full blown version of our species. And the thing is that unless we do that, we're actually not going to be able to survive. We actually have to step into the birthright of our species, step into the shoes of the birthright of our species in order to um, continue to evolve, so that because what we've been up until this point is much more perpetrators of life as opposed to stewards of life. But by stepping into our divine humanship, we become stewards of life. And really, and that's point number 8. And point number 9 is that what's at the root of all this is the absolute. It's what the Hindus called para Brahman. Brahman is God, para is beyond. It's like, and the Buddhists call it shunyata, the void. It's like the black hole at the center of the universe, that from which we all come and to which we all return. That essential isness of life explodes into creation, and it's our separation or the illusion of separation from that essential oneness, wholeness that creates this worthlessness. And this is what we're um, evolving through. So, once again, I'm Christopher McCord from wholenessgeeks.com, and this has been about worthlessness. If you have questions, if you have suggestions, comments, you want to enter into, a dialogue about this, you can join the Facebook group. It's the Wholeness Geeks Facebook group, and you can even share your own, ideas and meditations in that group. So thanks for listening and watching, and um, make friends with your worthlessness.